In this video, I am going to be discussing who I am rooting for, in every single game, and whether or not I think that it's likely or not to happen. So first of all, kicking off, you got Steelers-Ravens. Steelers-Ravens is a game that's in the AFC, so, I don't care about it too much, but I do have, a slight preference in that I want the Pittsburgh Steelers to lose this game. Now, yes, if the Steelers lose this game, they're going to be almost certainly eliminated from playoff contention. So why would I want the Steelers to lose when, you could have a team like the Baltimore Ravens lose and they'll still lock up the 1 seed. So, why would I want, to say that I don't want Pittsburgh to make the playoffs? That sounds kind of rude. But I have a legitimate reason for it. As much as the Eagles are my favorite team, there is something about me that likes the Bills, and they are, in my mind, the only New York football team. And I want the only New York football team to make the playoffs, and I don't want it to come down to a win in Miami against the Dolphins, because that might not happen. So, half of me also kind of wants the Dolphins to win, because they haven't won the East since 2008, and they haven't won a playoff game since 2000, and they're much more likely to get it if they can get into that, that divisional title. But because they want the Steelers the Bills to make the playoffs anyway, I need the Steelers to lose this game. Plus, the Jaguars, I kind of, feel like I want them to win. So, as a result, Steelers, I have to sacrifice here, because if I don't sacrifice the Pittsburgh Steelers, then I won't get my ideal playoff teams that I want. So Steelers gotta go. Steelers, they just have to go. They have to be eliminated from the playoffs. I need them to lose to the Baltimore Ravens. I just need them to lose to the Ravens. So, in my ideal world, I have the Ravens beating the Steelers. Then you got Saturday Night Football, primetime. Indianapolis Colts taking on the Houston Texans. And the loser's out and the winner's in. Now, I've always said that I predicted the Colts to narrowly take this game. But I've never said what my opinions on this game are. And I want the Houston Texans to win. Why do I want the Texans to win? Because the Texans have never made it past the divisional round. If they can sneak into the playoffs, then they can wind up pulling a run there. I don't know if they're going to make it to the AFC Championship, especially not if the Jaguars beat the Titans, which I do actually kind of want. But, you have the Colts who've won a Super Bowl before, and they also made the playoffs more recently. Not by a lot, by a little bit. The Colts qualified in 2020. The Texans last qualified in 2019. And I just feel as though, for the Colts, they kind of deserve it less than the Texans. They've been making a lot less noise. And, even though it's in Indianapolis, and I think the Colts are likely to win, I'd rather see the Texans make the playoffs than the Colts make the playoffs. I think it's remarkable that one of the worst teams in the NFL last year is guaranteed to make the playoffs. But I'd rather, the Texans are a worse team than the Colts. And the Colts honestly should have made the playoffs in 2021, but they threw it against the Jaguars, which, combined with the Steelers beating the Ravens, is what kicked the Colts out. That's highly embarrassing, because in 2021, the Jaguars went 3-14. So why would I want the Colts to make the playoffs? Because they could have been on just a 1-year drought. The only reason why their drought's 2 years is because they lost to one of the worst teams in the NFL. So as a result, I feel as though the Colts don't deserve it as much, and they honestly deserve to have a 3-year playoff drought, where the Texans are just consistently a bottom team, and now they finally have the chance to make noise in the playoffs with C.J. Stroud, who could, honestly, if he keeps playing like this, the Texans could start a bit of a dynasty going on here. Not saying that's going to happen, but Texans could honestly get their first Super Bowl, under C.J. Stroud. Again, not saying it's likely, but I'm just saying that, it could happen. This could be the start of something amazing for the Houston Texans. But First, they got to get into the playoffs. And as I alluded to, Jaguars, Titans, I do want the Jaguars to win because, they've never made it past the AFC Championship. But in 2017, they should have been against the Eagles in the Super Bowl, but they blew a 10-point fourth quarter lead, which was sad. And, if the Jaguars lose this game, they risk total elimination from the playoffs. They would need the Steelers to lose, and they'd also need the Broncos to lose. Because if you have the Steelers lose and the Broncos win, and Colts-Texans doesn't tie, you'd still need like a few other scenarios to go your way, like the Bills losing. But if you get all that going, the Steelers could make the playoffs at 9-8. Because the Broncos would force that logjam even though they are themselves eliminated from playoff contention. So the Jaguars, they win, they get the South. It's the safest bet. Easiest path for them to get to the AFC Championship game. Even though they would then almost certainly have to go up against, they'd be very likely they win the first round to go up against the Baltimore Ravens. And honestly, I don't see the Cleveland Browns giving them an easy time. So a wild card loss is likely, but if you can't make the playoffs, then everything is downhill. All right. Now, we're in the 1 o'clock slot of games. Now we have Falcons Saints. First of all, since there's an official Jaguar Gator 9 likes to say that he wished the Falcons Saints game was earlier, I have to respect putting Steelers Ravens there. I gotta say that was a better choice because Falcons Saints is a game that, could have playoff implications or it could not. And I guess the same is true of this game, but it's much more likely for the Steelers to get into the playoffs if they win than it is for the Falcons or the Saints. For the Falcons, they need to have the Buccaneers lose. For the Saints, they don't need the Buccaneers to lose, but if the Buccaneers win, they need the Packers and the Seahawks to lose. They don't control their destiny in any way, shape, or form. And as a result of that, we can see how, me personally, I think that this game is unlikely to matter. Nonetheless, I feel I want the Falcons to win this game because in the unlikely event that the Falcons win the NFC South, they'll be a much easier opponent to take on than the Saints. They both have terrible head coaches, but the Falcons, Desmond Ridder's just not their guy. But if they can make the playoffs under him, then the Eagles will have a very easy time beating them, even though right now we are one of the worst teams in the NFL. Because as long as we don't have a game like we had against the Cardinals, against the Falcons, I feel as though the Eagles will win. Over the Saints, though, you gotta really consider if they wind up making it, you just have to consider how for Philadelphia, you just gotta consider how almost certainly gonna be in a 5 seed. We have to play the Saints at their home. The Saints beat us last time, and we were better. Granted, we didn't have Hurts, but we were a better team last year, and the Saints still destroyed us. So it's very nerve-wracking, and going up against the Saints would not make me very comforting. Nonetheless, I do think the Buccaneers are going to beat the Panthers, and I want the Bucs to beat the Panthers. First of all, last year we didn't see a team go a team with under 3 wins. The worst team was the 3-14 Bears. So seeing a team go 2-15, we haven't seen that in a while. And I know I'm making jokes at the Panthers' expense, but the last time we saw a team do that poorly was the 2020 Jets, who went 2-14, tied with the 2020 Jaguars, who went 1-15. So we haven't seen a team with, under 3 wins ever since we were in a 17-game season. We haven't seen, a team have under 3 wins. And I feel like it'll be a nice moment of history, even if it's at the Panthers' expense, and even though the Bears are getting their draft pick anyway. But the other reason why is, the Buccaneers, I at least have a somewhat sense of confidence. Yes, the Eagles were a much better team when we beat the Buccaneers, but we haven't had good wins all year. But the Buccaneers and Dolphins games were the 2 games in which the Eagles won by over 14 points. The reason why I want the, I think the Buccaneers was our best game all season, whereas against the Dolphins, people are going to make the arguments of ref interference. Fun fact, Bucs and Dolphins are the only, two primetime games my parents let me watch in full, as in, those night games. Vikings, we couldn't find out how to watch it. Chiefs and Cowboys had a test the next day, and Seahawks, I just stayed the night before to see a concert. I did get to see the full games of the Bills and 49ers because they were on, national TV on Fox. And there was no Giants or Jets game at the time. So I was able to see, those games. I was able to see the Eagles take on the Giants on Christmas because they're a local market, and it was also NFL on Christmas. I was able to see the Eagles take on the Jets because, again, local market. I'll be able to see the Eagles take on the Giants in Week 18. But there are a lot of Eagles games I couldn't watch this year. The two I got to watch on primetime, though, really were our best games. Our only two games that we won by double digits. So, and the only other game that was a 2-score game for us was the Rams. And we beat Tampa on the road. So it's not like all of a sudden Tampa has a home field advantage. I legitimately think that we could beat the Buccaneers. Yes, we're a worse team, and yes, they're a better team, but we both came into this game at 2-0. And honestly, the Eagles were just able to win that important game. So I feel like if we have to take on an NFC South team, I would most rather be the Buccaneers because they do have the strongest sense of confidence against a team like Tampa. Because when you look at our regular season performances, you just see how the Eagles really did our best against a team like the Bucs. Jets, Patriots, I want the Patriots to win. I would almost never cheer for the Jets. And, I just think that Patriots have a 15 game win streak against the Jets. After the Broncos beat the Chiefs, that is the most dominated that a regular season team has, ever been. The Patriots beat the Jets when they had Brady consistently ever since 2015, when the Jets had a winning record and almost made the playoffs. And that was the last time the Jets had a win. And, the Jets actually beat the Patriots in 2010 in the divisional round when they met in the playoffs. But, since then, it's been mostly domination from New England. Even when, the Patriots lost Tom Brady in 2020, Jets had one of their worst seasons ever. So it's no surprise that the Patriots wound up getting a sweep. 2021, Patriots actually improved. They're in the 1 seed for a bit, but they wind up having a late season collapse that knocks them down to the 6th seed, where they get smoked by the Bills in a wild card round. Nevertheless, you still see that Patriots sweep the Jets. That's also a terrible season. In 2022, that's, arguably they've come in being comparable because they were both in the playoff hunt for a while, but they both wound up losing. Patriots still got their sweep of the New Jersey Jets. It's just like that. Now, in this season, the Jets are actually guaranteed to finish above the Patriots. That's not because the Jets are any good, though. At best, they'll match their 2022 record with a win. But if they lose to New England, then they'll fall on their record. New England is going to have their worst season in a while anyway. But I just don't think that the Jets personally deserve to break their streak. Yes, I know the Patriots are total garbage this year, but the Jets are still total garbage themselves. And I don't feel as though the Jets really deserve to be able to defeat New England and snap their streak in this kind of year. Broncos, at least, are having a relatively good year, even though they're unlikely to make the playoffs. Jets, you cannot say the same about them. As for, the other games that are going on at this time, which I don't really know I think Vikings-Lions, I want the Lions to win. Just because should our Eagles lose, but also the Cowboys lose, the Lions are going to get the 2 seed, and that's going to help them so much in the playoffs. You cannot tell me how much it's going to mean to them to get the 2 seed. And the Lions are a team that's been struggling for a while, so I kind of want them to have a taste of success. Now, in the case, is that all of our morning games? Think so. I think that's all of our games that are taking place, in the morning, because it's 5 divisions, so it's a bit easier to tell. Bengals Browns might be in the morning. Doesn't really matter for both teams, but I think that'd be hilarious if after all of this Bengals talk, they finish the losing record and finish 8-9. Also, I want Cleveland to have a 12-win season so that they could say officially they've had the best season since the 90s, whereas in 2020 they were 11-5, so they lose this game to 11-6, so they win to 12-5. So I want the Browns to win that game, even though it doesn't have any implications for either team. I think it'd be hilarious if the Bengals have a losing record after, what was supposed to be a dynasty for them. And I don't want to hear any excuses about Joe Burrow being injured. They were only 5-4 in the Burrow, and with Browning, they're, 3-4. So Browning is not that much worse than Joe Burrow. And Bengals, even without, Burrow, had a prime opportunity to make the playoffs because they were 8-6 after they come close win against the Vikings, and they blew it by first losing to the Steelers and then losing to the Chiefs. So I don't want to hear it out of Bengals fans. I just don't. Because the team started off 1-3, and they were a struggling team for a while, and they just don't deserve any success. Now, I think we're on a 4-5 slot. I think so. And first, you have the Bears-Packers. Now, in the unlikely event the Eagles get the 2 seed, I don't want the Seahawks to make it. And I do think that it would be nice if the, Green Bay Packers can make the playoffs and not history repeat itself. So I will say I do want the Packers to win that game. And, Seahawks-Cardinals, I want the Seahawks to lose, because should the Packers lose, a Seahawks loss will eliminate them from the playoffs. And in the unlikely event that we get the 2 seed, I think that it would be great, if we didn't have to play the Seahawks. Because if we play the Seahawks, we're doomed. Cowboys and Commanders, I want the Commanders to win, even though I don't see it's likely, because then we can get the 2 seed under our belt. If they lose, then we're going to be stuck at the 5 seed. We'll be stuck at the 5 seed if they lose. Then we'll have to see the Cowboys at the 2 seed, likely to get the NFC Championship that they've been longing for, but I don't want them to get. And that's a lot of what this is. This is just me, a lot of the time it's me thinking strategically for the Eagles as to what would help us. And that's what a lot of this is. Rams, 49ers, I don't want the 49ers to finish off 13-4. I want them to be 12-5, and I wanted to, and it would show that, yes, the 49ers won the conference, but it would also highlight how weak the conference really is. And I think that if the 49ers, lose to the Rams would lock up that 6 seed, so we won't have to worry about playing them if we get the 2 seed. Whereas if they lose, we might actually have to play them if the Packers win, and that would be a nightmare, because even though I beat them by 9 points, they're just, a good team. And I want the Rams to be able to get into the 6th seed, and I want the 49ers to have to get the 1 seed at 12-5, and then that would honestly make them look weak and really open the NFC for any game, because I do not want the 49ers making the Super Bowl. Hell no. Obviously, I want the Eagles to beat the Giants. The only caveat is, if the Eagles lose, the Giants have a worse draft pick. But the only reason why I would ever want the Eagles to lose is if the Cowboys lost anyway, and if we were, resting our starters and playing strategically. That's like the only scenario in which I'd be fine with the Eagles loss. If we were playing strategically and we still won in the wild card round against probably the Bucs. Now, there are still more games. Chiefs, Chargers doesn't really matter, but for Swift, I'll cheer for the Chiefs. Broncos-Raiders. I want the Broncos to say they've had their first winning season since, 2016, and give them strength and momentum heading into 2024 to, end their 8-year playoff drought. So for that reason, and that reason alone, I will cheer for Denver in that game. Think that might honestly be close to it for those games. I know we have Bills-Dolphins, but I don't really see any other important game that needs discussing in Bills-Dolphins. This one is conflicted. On the one hand, I like the Bills. I want to see the Bills potentially get their first ever Super Bowl ring. It's going to be a lot easier to get the 2 seed because then they get into home field advantage to the AFC Championship. On the other hand, as much as I really don't like the Dolphins, I feel a little bit bad for them because the Dolphins have not won a playoff game since 2000, the longest streak in the AFC. They have not won They have not won the East since 2008, and even then, they couldn't make it past the first round. If they get the division title, they have the first title since 2008 and be in prime position to beat the 7th seed and get the first playoff win since 2000. It's both conflicting for me to pick who's going to win that game and who I want to win that game. Because, I feel like the Bills dominated the Dolphins 48-20, and the Dolphins have only beaten one 500 team this year, the Cowboys. And the Cowboys themselves have only beaten 2 500 teams this year, 500 means 500 or more, and that was the Lions and the Eagles. So it's hard to take the Dolphins seriously this year. They can't beat good teams. But also you can make the argument that even though they won 500 when they played them, they put 70 on the Broncos, and if the Broncos finished 9-8, they would have actually had, technically won by 50 points against the team that had a winning record. Not at the time they played, but to end the season, so just some food for thought, to be honest.